My daughter Sarah was my whole world. I was a single mother after my ex-husband Dan left me for a younger woman named Claire. We resided in a modest yet comfortable Brooklyn apartment. I dedicated long hours as a nurse to provide for Sarah's needs. It wasn't luxurious, but it was secure. Everything changed when Sarah turned 16. She began to increasingly spend time with Dan and Claire in their opulent Upper East Side apartment. Their wealth was something I couldn't rival. Claire, childless herself, relished the role of the cool stepmom, indulging Sarah with shopping sprees, spa visits, and lavish vacations. Sarah was captivated. The day that devastated me arrived when Sarah, seated across from me at our small kitchen table, arms folded, calmly announced, "I'm moving in with Dad and Claire." My heart sank. We had discussed this, but she interrupted. "They can give me a better life than you ever could." The words were a physical blow. Despite my love and sacrifices, she felt it wasn't enough. She packed that night and was gone by the next morning. Initially, she would occasionally reply to my texts, but within months she blocked me. I had become a mere memory, a part of her life she had outgrown. Months of sleepless nights followed. Holidays were agonizing. I resorted to viewing her social media through a friend's account, witnessing her Parisian escapades, designer clothes, and smiles with her perfect family. Claire's gushing captions, especially when Sarah called Claire Mom, nearly broke me. Years passed. I survived, working and gradually healing. The daily crying ceased. I came to terms with Sarah's choice. Then, unexpectedly, my phone rang. "Mom?" I almost dropped the phone. It was Sarah, her voice overly sweet, a tone I recognized as a prelude to a request. She inquired about our grandma's vacation house in Cape Cod, a property my mother had left me. It wasn't large, but it was idyllically located by the water, a place of cherished childhood memories and future plans of passing it down to Sarah. She expressed her desire to move there, mentioning Dan and Claire's involvement in some business ventures, and requested I sign it over to her. The request felt like a recurring nightmare, another rejection. I simply said, "No." Her feigned sweetness evaporated, replaced by a demanding, "Why not?" I explained it was mine, to which she retorted, "Mom, you don't even use it. You don't need a whole house." I countered that I did use it, and even if I didn't, it didn't entitle her to it. She snapped, "Mom, don't be selfish. You owe me." I laughed, a humorless laugh of realization that the person I loved had never reciprocated that love in the same way. I reminded her of my sacrifices, her abandonment, and her sudden reappearance only when she needed something. After a silence, she claimed, "I was just a kid," to which I responded that at 16, she was fully aware of her actions. She whined about holding a grudge, but I clarified I was simply refusing her request. Her voice turned icy, threatening to take the house if I wouldn't give it. I hung up. A week later, a letter from a lawyer arrived. Sarah was contesting my ownership, baselessly claiming my mother intended for her to inherit it. She had no case, but she was determined to try. That's when I took decisive action, not just defensively, but aggressively. I consulted my lawyer, Mr. Callahan, who confirmed her lack of legal standing but warned of a potentially protracted battle. I was prepared. I drove to Cape Cod, changed the locks, reinforced the doors, and in a move that would infuriate Sarah, I moved in. 3 days later, a car crunched on the gravel driveway. Sarah emerged, looking like a stranger in my daughter's face, her appearance reflecting her new life. I opened the door before she could knock. She demanded to talk. I refused. She claimed it was her house. I reiterated it was mine. Her parting words, "This isn't over," were met with my silent acknowledgement. Sarah escalated with legal threats, each more desperate. One night, a text from an unknown number warned, "You're making a mistake. Claire has connections." Claire's involvement signaled a looming escalation. A week later, I returned from grocery shopping to find evidence of intrusion. The scent of Claire's perfume, a wine glass not mine. I called Mr. Callahan, who advised installing a security system. Sarah wasn't just after the house. She wanted to intimidate me. The next confrontation involved Sarah, Claire, and Dan. Claire, adopting a condescending tone, suggested the place wasn't right for me. Sarah, echoing her stepmother, insisted she needed the house. My response was firm. No. I accused them of throwing me away and expecting me to acquiesce. Claire threatened legal action, to which I responded with a calm, "You're going to wish you never tried." A week later, a letter arrived, a forged one purportedly from Mr. Callahan, claiming I had agreed to transfer ownership to Sarah. It was a clumsy forgery, but the message was clear. They were desperate. Mr. Callahan confirmed it as fraud. I could press charges, but I chose to wait, letting them further incriminate themselves. I called Sarah, feigning neutrality, and agreed to meet, hinting at a resolution. That night, Sarah, Claire, and Dan arrived. Claire exuding victory, Sarah triumphant. I played along, sighing. You win. You want the house, it's yours. Sarah's eyes lit up, but I added, on one condition. I produced a document prepared by my lawyer, not a transfer of ownership, but a confession of fraud. By signing, Sarah would admit to the forged letter, attempted coercion, and fraudulent claims. It was a felony. Claire, realizing the trap, ripped the document. I smiled. I don't think I know. Dan, finally speaking, admitted, this has gone too far. Sarah, however, remained defiant, screaming, I deserve this house. You owe me for being a terrible mother. I responded, I don't owe you anything, and closed the door. I anticipated their next move. People like Claire don't concede easily. A call from Dan followed, an unexpected plea. He admitted he hadn't known the extent of Claire's actions and revealed they were getting a divorce. Claire was kicking Sarah out. Sarah had nowhere to go. The shock was palpable. Claire, having used Sarah, was discarding her, mirroring Sarah's treatment of me. I responded coldly, that's not my problem. Later that night, pounding on my door revealed a disheveled, tearful Sarah, asking to come in, admitting she had nowhere else. She acknowledged her mistake, confessing she thought Claire loved her, only to be discarded when no longer needed. I reminded her, now you know how it feels. A long silence followed, broken by her whispered, I deserve that. I let her in. She sat, humbled, a stark contrast to the arrogant girl from weeks before. She admitted her awfulness, her belief that Claire was better than me, and her realization of being wrong. I acknowledged her hurt, stating, you hurt me more than you will ever understand. She agreed. I allowed her to stay, but firmly stated she was not getting the house, nor was she stepping back into my life simply out of need. She nodded, understanding, though I wasn't sure she fully grasped it yet. That night, for the first time in years, I saw glimpses of the girl I had raised before Claire, before the money. The next morning, she asked if I could ever forgive her. I didn't answer immediately. Forgiveness wasn't a switch to be flipped. I admitted, I don't know, but I think I'm willing to try. She offered a small, broken smile, and for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. The lesson, people don't always return as we wish. Sometimes they return only after losing everything, sometimes too late, and sometimes we let them back. Not because we forget or because they deserve it, but because we choose to. And that choice is where the real power lies.